Layla stood by the viewport of her cramped lab on the lunar station. She gazed at Earth above the moon's dark horizon. The sight always comforted her, but today it made her chest ache. Best friend Aaron had moved to Mars Colony 6 months ago. At first, they had called each day and shared jokes. But lately the messages were short. The calls grew empty. Silence had crept between them like asteroid dust. She closed her eyes and let a single tear roll down her cheek. Inside her lab, hollow recorders lined the wall. Lila flicked through their stored memories. She saw herself and Aaron exploring lava tunnels, tasting strange algae snacks, and chasing virtual solar flares across digital skies. Her heart tightened at each memory. She played a clip of Aaron's cheerful voice. It crackled with warmth. She reached out and paused the recording. Pain bloomed in her chest. These clips felt distant now, like echoes from another life.
She stood,
silent under the soft hum of the station's lights. Work felt like a distraction. Lila spent her days repairing air filters and tuning pressure valves. The tasks were simple, but her mind always drifted back to Aaron. Every time the station come ping sounded, hope sparked in her chest. Yet she did not answer. She told herself to wait. Maybe he would call again. But the pings grew rare. Lila watched her colleagues laugh in the corridors about weekend dances on Earth. She smiled at them. But inside she felt empty, like an unused docking port. One evening, a battered relay unit arrived from a Mars supply ship. It was old tech marked. For discard, Layla saw a promise. She carried the box to her workshop. She imagined using that relay to reach Aaron. If she could boost its signal, she could send messages more clearly across the solar system. Humans had built ships that sailed between worlds. They had built dreams larger than any crater. She placed the relay on her bench and rolled up her sleeves. That night, Leela worked under the yellow glow of her task lamp. She studied circuit diagrams projected in midair. She replaced corroded capacitors with fresh ones grown in the station's labs. She rewrote the relay's code. Her hands moved with steady purpose. Each solder joint she made felt like a promise. Sometimes the device sparked and went dark. She felt doubt swirl like a storm. Could she really do this? But then she thought of Aaron's smile, and a fierce determination flared. Humans never gave up when hope remained. After 2 nights and 2 days, the relay hummed with new life. Layla ran the final test. A pale green beam of data raced along the station's communication array and jumped across space toward Mars. She watched the console readouts flicker, and a single line of text appeared. "Lila, is that you?" Her heart pounded like an engine starting. She pressed the reply button, hands trembling. "Aaron, I am here." The reply came almost instantly, carrying the warmth of his voice. The sound filled the workshop. Leela leaned back and let tears of joy fall. They talked for hours. Through crackling comlinks, they shared stories of new discoveries and quiet fears. Aaron told her about red dust storms and the soft glow of Mars' twin moons, Layla described. The silent beauty of the lunar horizon. They laughed about shared memories. The gap between worlds seemed to shrink with each word. She realized that even thousands of kilometers could not break a bond built on care. In that moment, she felt hope bloom stronger than any star's glow. In the days that followed, Lila fine-tuned the relay. She added a color video feed so she could see Aaron's face in full light. She and Aaron planned an official live link event for the station and the Mars colony. Engineers from both worlds gathered in viewing rooms. When the link opened, cheers filled the decks. Human faces lit by screens smiled across the void. Music played softly in the background. For a moment, space seemed smaller. It felt like one community, one family. On the day of the Live Link Festival, Layla wore her favorite blue jumpsuit. She stood in the control room, hands clasped tightly. The countdown began. Lights blinked. Then Aaron's face appeared on the screen, smiling wide. He waved, she waved back. Around them, engineers and diplomats stood hand in hand. Humans from 2 worlds, united by technology and by heart. Layla felt tears of pride and relief. This was the power of humanity, she thought. Kindness and invention could cross any distance. Later, that night, Layla looked out at Earth and Mars hanging side by side in the sky, tiny dots in the vast black. She traced a line from one to the other in her mind. It's worlds, two hearts, connected by human will. She whispered softly, "We will always find a way." In the quiet hum of the station, she felt the power of human kindness and creativity light every corner of space. And that was the true spirit of HFY. Layla woke before dawn on the moon. She rolled out of her bunk and stood by the small viewport, watching Earth hang above the horizon like a blue marble. Last night, she had spoken with Aaron through the relay she built. His voice had sounded so close that it felt as if he stood beside her, but now the station felt empty. Only the soft hum of life support filled the corridors. She pressed her hand against the cool glass and whispered, "I miss you, Aaron." Then she turned and walked back to her lab, determined to do more than just speak. In the workshop, Leela unpacked the parts she had set aside. She wanted to send something real, something he could see and hold. She sketched a small drone on her helipad, a simple sphere, no larger than her fist, with solar panels and a light beacon. She tapped commands into the station AI, and it projected flight paths in midair. She replaced old capacitors from the discarded relay with brand new ones, grown in the hydroponics bay. She soldered each joint. She thought of Aaron's laugh echoing in lava tunnels. Each solder point became a promise to bridge the gap between worlds. Meanwhile on Mars, Aaron pored over Leela's sketches. He stood in his red dust lab under the colony dome, remembering how they once crawled through dark tunnels on the moon. He added his own ideas, a tiny camera for her to see him, and a voice recorder so she could hear the wind on Mars. He programmed a dust sensor to capture the storm's swirl and color. When he sent the updated files back, his message read simply, "I want you to see my world." He paused before hitting send, his heart full of hope. Layla received Aaron's reply hours later. The relay had carried not only his words, but also his excitement. She gathered the drone parts and set to work under a bright lamp. She attached the mini camera, the voice recorder, and the dust sensor. She wrote code to compress their voices and images into digital streams that could travel through space. At each test, she ran simulations with the AI and adjusted the flight controls. When the little sphere spun its panels under the test lamp and flashed its beacon, she felt tears slip down her cheeks. The machines hummed like a lullaby of hope. On the other side of the void, Aaron built his matching drone in the Mars colony workshop. He used a 3D printer and raw metals brought from Earth. He printed the outer shell and fitted in circuit boards and the projector he had designed. He chose pictures of their shared memories, how Lila smiled when she first saw Martian rocks, how they ate algae snacks together. He programmed the projector to play a silent slideshow of laughter and friendship. He could not hug her, but he could show her what he saw every day. When both drones were ready, they launched on the same schedule. Layla watched her sphere climb into lunar orbit, and heart pounded as it disappeared from view. Aaron guided his from the Mars surface into the thin sky. Engineers on both stations tracked their paths. Drones were set to meet at the Lagrange point between the two worlds, where gravity balanced in a steady embrace. As each drone crossed halfway, people gathered around viewing screens. The mood was electric, humans on two planets witnessing their own ingenuity. After days of travel, the two spheres finally met. They hovered side by side, bathed in sunlight. The camera captured their shapes floating in the void. Then the projector on Aaron's drone lit up, casting images of their past adventures onto Leela's control screen. Their voices mixed in the empty space, saying simple words. "I'm here. I remember. I care." Layla and Aaron both choked back tears. The drones separated and began their return journeys, carrying back new memories and data. When Leela saw her drone's camera feed show the Martian horizon, she gasped. She spoke to Aaron through the live link. "The sky looks red. It's beautiful." On Mars, he smiled at her voice and said, "And your moon is still so blue." Engineers on both stations cheered at the success. They had watched two friends bridge a gulf of hundreds of thousands of kilometers with nothing but metal, code, and compassion. In that moment, the distance felt smaller. That evening, Layla sat by the viewport again. Earth and Mars glimmered. Side by side against the black sky, she pressed her palm to the glass and whispered, "We did it." She thought of all the people who had helped: engineers, scientists, friends. She realized that hope was not just a feeling, but an action. It lived in every soldered wire, every line of code, every shared memory. And she knew that as long as humans kept caring and inventing, no distance could ever break their bond. Layla woke to the soft glow of control lights and the gentle hum of machines. She stretched and walked to the viewport. Earth hung low in the black sky, a bright jewel against silence. She thought of Aaron on Mars. Their last holo meeting had felt so real, yet miles of space lay between them once more. In the weeks after the drone exchange, Leela and Aaron spoke daily. They shared data, laughter, and hope. But lately his replies were short. He spoke of colony duties and research deadlines. Leela understood his new life, but she felt a fresh ache of distance. The screen felt smaller now, and her heart grew heavy. At breakfast, she watched colleagues plan a supply run to Phobos. They spoke of gravity and dust storms, but all Layla heard was the gap in her own routine. She tried to smile, to offer help. Yet inside, she worried that her next message to Aaron would be just another brief line of text. Lost in bustle, back in her workshop, Leela sat before a blank hologenerator. The device could beam simple data and images, but she wanted something more: presence. She imagined Aaron standing beside her, sharing the same air. Humans had woven steel that crossed storms and oceans. They had built ships that leaped over light years. Could they build a bridge of light to connect hearts? She sketched a plan: retrofit the holoprojector to render a full three-dimensional image across worlds. It would need powerful transmitters and new compression code. She tapped commands into the station computer. Files appeared mid-air: circuit diagrams, flowcharts, and energy curves. Each line represented human skill and human will. Layla knew she could not do this alone. She called engineer Mumba, who had helped with the relay. He arrived with coffee and a curious smile. She laid out her idea: a live hololink with Aaron on Mars. Moimba's eyes lit up. "It sounds hard," he said, "but not impossible." He tapped a few commands and nodded. "Let's try." They spent the day in the lab. Moimba rewrote firmware, while Layla retooled lenses and mirrors. Sparks flew during soldering, but each spark felt like a promise. Other engineers drifted, drawn by their excitement. Soon, a small team formed: humans, united by a shared wish to bring to friends face to face across the void. After 3 nights, the prototype stood ready. It looked like a tall cylinder with rings of lenses. Layla powered it on. The machine hummed, and lights danced across its surface. She calibrated alignment with careful taps on her holopad. Then, she sent a test pattern to Mars. The team watched the data log until a single word appeared on the screen: received. Encouraged, Layla dialed Aaron. Her heart pounded as she flipped the switch. The holoprojector glowed, and a fine mist gathered in the air. A figure emerged, Aaron's shape soft and shimmering. He stepped forward, reaching out. Love and relief flooded Leela's chest. She reached toward him, her hand trembling. "Leela." His voice echoed around the lab, clear and warm. Engineers fell silent, awed by the moment. Layla nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm here," she whispered. For a while, they walked together through the empty workshop, showing each other small smiles and quiet laughter. Distance felt invisible. When the link faded, the room burst into applause. Engineers who had never met Aaron cheered as if they knew him. Mumba slapped Layla on the back, grinning. "You did it," he said. Layla smiled through tears. "Did it?" she replied. She realized that this was the heart of humanity: to solve problems not for war, but for connection. That evening, Layla returned to the viewport. Mars glowed as a red dot beside Earth's blue light. She pressed her palm to the glass and whispered, "Soon I will visit you." She imagined stepping onto Martian soil and greeting Aaron in person. The gaps in their messages would fill with shared moments, face to face. In the quiet hum of the station, Layla felt hope like a beacon. She had felt distant and alone, but human creativity and kindness had shown her a way. No matter how far someone moved away, human hearts could build bridges stronger than any starship. And that, she knew, was the true power of HFY. Layla woke before the station's morning alarm and stood by the viewport. The pale Earth shone against the dark void, and Mars glowed faintly at its side. She remembered the thrill of their halo projector link the first time she saw Aaron's face floating in her workshop. Yet after that bright moment, the distance felt even sharper. She missed the sound of his laugh and the warmth of his voice. Her lab felt empty again. Layla pressed her hand to the glass and vowed she would not let space keep them apart. That evening, Layla sketched new ideas on her holopad. She dreamed of a shared world where she and Aaron could meet, even if only in pixels and light. She called it the Memory Garden. In her mind, it blended Earth's green fields, the moon's quiet craters, and Mars' red dunes. They would walk virtual paths side by side, reliving old times and making new memories. Humans had built bridges of steel and glass across continents. Surely they could build one of light across space. She reached out to engineer Moomba again. Over coffee in the common area, she explained the memory garden. He nodded, eyes bright. "We'll need more processing power and a new projection array," he said. Other engineers overheard and joined in. Soon a small team formed, all eager to help two friends connect. They talked late into the night, sharing designs and stories of long-distance calls they had made to family. Each person's own memory of distance became fuel for the project. In the workshop, Layla and the team set to work. They repurposed the holoprojector's rings and added sensor arrays from old survey drones. They built a spherical chamber, lined with fine fog to carry light. Inside, a user could walk and feel the virtual ground beneath their feet. Engineers wired haptic gloves and boots so that each step, each brush of grass or swirl of red dust, would register on the skin. The memory garden would not only show the other person, but let them feel each other's world. As days passed, the chamber took shape. Layla ran line after line of code, blending images of Earth meadows, lunar tunnels, and Martian plains into a seamless world. She programmed the breezes to carry scents-fresh grass, dry moon dust, and spicy Martian rock. Every detail was a promise. Humans could not only travel among the stars, they could bring the stars to one another's hearts. When the simulation loaded, she saw a small patch of green next to red sand and white stones. She smiled through tears. On Mars, Aaron watched the data stream from Leela's station. He downloaded the memory garden files and built his own chamber inside the colony's rec hall. He carved the floor to match the patterns Leela had coded and set up his own haptic gloves. When the day came, both chambers were ready. Layla and Aaron exchanged a single message. Now. Their hearts raced as they stepped inside their separate spheres. Layla felt the gentle brush of grass under her boots and smelled Earth's spring air. She looked up and saw Aaron standing on the red plateau beside her. His form was real enough to make her pulse quicken. He reached out, and his hand passed through hers like soft light. She laughed, and he laughed back. They walked together, marveling at each other's world. She guided him through a field of blue wildflowers from Earth, and he led her across a ridge of Martian glass pebbles that tinkled underfoot. They stayed inside the memory garden for hours. They spoke of dreams and fears. 2 moons of Mars hung in the sky, and Leela pointed 2 tiny dots of distant stars. They built a small cairn of stones from each world, stacking them as a sign of unity. In that virtual space, distance vanished. The gap of hundreds of thousands of kilometers became a bridge of shared humanity. When they emerged, engineers greeted them with cheers. The project succeeded not for war or profit, but for friendship. Leela hugged Moomba and the team, her heart full. She read Aaron's live message. "Thank you," she typed back. "Always." That night, Layla gazed at Earth and Mars side by side. She knew that soon a real ship would carry her to Mars, but even if she never left the moon, she had already found the greatest power of humanity, the power to turn longing into connection. After the memory garden, Layla felt closer to Aaron than ever. She had seen him walk beside her worlds, yet her heart ached at the thought of his real hand in hers. The workshop was quiet. The tools sat unused. I realized that no matter how bright the light of projection, nothing matched the warmth of real touch. She thought of stories of explorers who first walked on another world. Humans had done the impossible before. Layla decided to make a new plan. She would build a small ship. She would go to Mars and see him. Next morning, Layla asked for a meeting with the Lunar Station Council. She stood before the counselors in their crisp uniforms. She spoke with a clear voice. She wanted to convert a small cargo shuttle into a single passenger craft. It would carry her from the moon to Mars. She explained that machines and code had built a bridge of light. Now she wanted a bridge of steel. The counselors listened, their faces unreadable. She did not mention danger or glory. She spoke of hope, of human bonds, and of the power to reach across the void. The council paused before answering. One counselor, Juno, asked about fuel and safety. Layla answered with facts. The shuttle had fuel reserves. Life support could last the journey, and the trajectory needed only small course corrections. She told them humans had traveled to Earth orbit and beyond with less. Another counselor, Mitsu, looked moved by her determination. He spoke of how human courage had driven great voyages from Earth to the moon. Slowly, smiles spread across the table. At last, they agreed to support her mission. They provided engineers, parts, and a clear launch window. Layla gathered her team in the hangar. They stripped down the cargo bay and installed passenger modules. Designers fitted a viewport window facing Mars. They added extra life support filters and solar panels on the shuttle's wing. Layla and Moonba tested the engines. Sparks flew when they first fired them. Leela felt the thrill in her chest. Each test became proof of human skill. The shuttle glowed under work lights like a promise. At the end of the day, the crew stood back and admired their work. Humans again made the impossible real. Far away on Mars, Aaron received a hollow message. From Leela, she had shared the launch plans and a video of the finished shuttle. He watched the shuttle's engines fire in rehearsal. His heart swelled with pride. He replied with a short message. I will wait for you. Scientists on Mars prepared a landing pad and a welcome team. Aaron reviewed his own schedule, cleared his duties, and learned to work with the landing systems. He felt hope and excitement. Soon he would stand beside Leela in person, not just in light. Launch day arrived. Engineers on both stations gathered to watch. Leela suited up in her flight gear. She checked each gauge and strapped herself into the seat. She felt a flutter of nerves, but also a steady resolve. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The engines roared. The hangar doors opened, and the shuttle leapt into the lunar sky. Layla felt the force push her back. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them wide with wonder. She held on to the control stick and whispered to Mars. For days, Layla flew through the silent expanse. She watched the moon fade behind her, then saw Mars grow larger, red, and bright. She monitored fuel and course, always steady. At night, she thought of Aaron and the places they would explore together. She ate simple meals and recorded logs about the journey. The shuttle's small cabin felt safe. Leela thought of human explorers, of old who had crossed oceans. Now she crossed space. Her heartbeat matched the pulse of the engine. She felt proud, hopeful, and connected to every human who had dared to dream. As Mars' red horizon filled the viewport, Lila guided the shuttle down. The landing pad loomed ahead, lit by bright lights in the Martian dusk. She lowered the landing gear and felt a gentle bump. Then wheels touched the ground. She let out a laugh of relief and joy. She powered down the engines and unstrapped. Her feet touched the Martian floor. She took a deep breath, tasting the filtered air. Around her, a welcome team cheered. Leela's eyes looked for one person. Aaron ran across the pad and swept Leela into a tight embrace. They laughed as red dust swirled. Hand in hand, they walked to a ridge watching Mars moons and distant Earth. Together, they planted a small flag with Earth and Mars symbols. Lila whispered, "We built this." Aaron replied, "And we will." In that moment, she saw the true spirit of humanity, hope in action.